And so thrilled to welcome her back to the show. She's been on before, Katrina Aguilar. Katrina, how are you?
Good. You?
I'm doing good. I'm doing really well. So before I get too far into everything, Katrina, do you participate in Halloween?
Of course.
And so I love that. I love your answer. And so do you know what you're dressing as, and is it a secret or is it something you can share?
I don't mind sharing. Well, since right on Halloween, we're actually going down to Los Angeles because they're doing a full Nightmare Before Christmas concert with Danny Elfman, the composer and the voice of Jack Skellington, along with um, Billie Eilish, who's performing as Sally. So I have like this really cool Sally dress I got from Disneyland a few years ago. So I'm just gonna sort of do. It's not a full on costume, but I'm gonna do a full bound as that.
I love that. Do you know, I had never heard the term bounding until about 2 years ago. And I had no idea. I would see people when I was at Disneyland dressed, and I would go, "Oh, that's interesting." There's sort of look in the colors of. Can you explain to people what bounding is?
Um, Disney bounding is basically it's sort of like cosplay, except it's more about an outfit.
Yeah,
It's not like this. It's not a full on extravaganza like
yeah.
cosplay. Like it could be a character, a movie, a theme. Um, so like like for an example, one of my favorite ones I wore a few years ago was it was a theme of Peter Pan, and
Mhm.
it was kind of on the Nana, the nursery dog. You know how she starts floating, with the help of Tinkerbell.
Yes.
So I wore this blue starry dress. I had Nana ears on top, and this pin of Wendy and Nana right there. So I mean, it's basically, long story short, it's a themed outfit.
I love it. I love it. And so, like, I saw a friend once that she went to Disneyland and she was wearing red pants and like a mustard colored shirt, and because she was bounding as Winnie the Pooh. So she didn't have her face made up like Winnie the Pooh, but she was wearing the colors of Winnie the Pooh. And it's sort of like, in the old days we used to talk about deconstructive art and things like that. So it's this, you're suggesting it, but you're not literal, which I super love because it gives you permission to do what you want. And that's a little bit what Nancy and I are doing on Friday. Is that we're not quite full realism. We're somewhere between realism and bounding. So, but I can't say I could tell you who we're going to be, but I would be killed because it's a deep, deep state secret. But Katrina, you're an amazing performer. And if people watched the show before, they might remember you, but we have new viewers now. So I'd kind of like to catch up with you a little bit about you, who you are, and what your musical background is. Can you tell us a little bit about you and your background?
Well, I've been singing since I was around 12 years old. It started with like the middle school choir, and plus I've done several like musicals. Fun fact, I played Nana the nursery dog in my very first musical play ever.
I love
So,
it.
but anyway, I mean that's kind of how I started, and then I later started to learn opera. So I'm made at my core. I'm classically trained. I later went to the Boston Conservatory, majoring in vocal performance, which is essentially what we classical voice. You know, um, I I also found during that time a pat. I love millions of different other styles of music as well. Disney, rock, jazz. I've written some other types of shows here and there. Um, I like one was Eleanor Rigby, but it was like her story, but I did it around Evanescence music.
Wow.
Um,
That's
so
cool.
yeah, so anyway, I after I graduated what we lovingly call BOCO, um, I've I've sort of I've sort of you know started to fall in love with cabaret, which gives you more freedom to explore different kinds of music while telling your story.
Yeah. And at some point you met Clifford Bell,
Mm-hmm.
and Clifford is like the king of cabaret. I think they even call him something like the king of cabaret. He's got like a nickname. I can't think what it is. Clifford, if you're
Cabaret
watching,
or some, I think.
something like that.
Cabaret, like,
Um, but Clifford's pretty connected, cabaret land, and Clifford just adores you, and with for all the good reasons and all the right reasons because you're so talented. And so you've been working with Clifford a little bit to do some shows, and you've done some benefits and such, but it was really time for you to have a show of your own. So talk to us a little bit about the show that you did and how people can tune in.
um, a little while later, I mean, because I've had a long time passion for Disney. I even credit that, I mentioned this in my show that it gave me it helped me learn to talk when I was nonverbal, you know. So there's I've had a deep-seated passion forever, even as I was studying classical voice and doing musicals. Um, so I think later on, as my love grew even further from that, I I had a new dream of creating a Disney cabaret show. So I didn't honestly funny, I didn't really know what it was going to be about. It was just I'm just doing the songs I love, well, which is true. But I didn't really know what it was truly about till Clifford and I were at a restaurant, jotting down the songs and what they really meant. And then it was like, oh, wait, this is much of my story growing up on the autistic spectrum. So that's kind of what birthed that idea.
And it's amazing to me how many connections there are. I think that a lot of people watching, whether they're on the spectrum or they have kiddos on the spectrum, there is something magical about the Disney experience that you're not the first person that I've heard say that that it became how you learn to sing and how to speak. I think that's more common than we even know. Um, and a lot of people are very passionate about Disney and about Disney movies, but to watch your show and see the like the connect the dots for me as a viewer, it's really amazing. And I wonder what it was like for you. At one point, you talk about comparing yourself to Elsa. Um, can you talk about that?
Oh my, oh God, I, there was honestly, there was a period of time, I hated Frozen. I wanted nothing to do with it. I mean, in part, it was all it was so hyped up, it was so popularized, but then when I really started to, look get get into it, and when as I found I found the thing was as I started to discover the Broadway musical
Mm,
and the songs you don't hear in the movies, and it was like,
mhm,
holy crap. I mean, they are singing my story. And I think the
mhm,
real reason I kind of hated it was because I related to her.
mhm,
In a way, I kind of was her. And
mhm,
and I guess that bothered me,
mhm.
So, but anyway, I mean, I love it now as I started, to sort of make peace with that.
Mhm.
But, that was that my connection with her and a little bit of Anna too,
Yeah.
you know.
Yeah. Well, and talk to us a little bit about, in the show, you talk about feeling like you had to hide who you were for other people to be comfortable. That
That's
just struck a chord with me, Katrina. I was like, oh my goodness, what must that have been like? Do you still feel that way? Do you feel like you have to hide who you are to make those of us around you comfortable?
as I've grown up, I've kind of realized that, you know, I didn't really have to. I do have support. There are people who either, they don't really care. It's like, okay, whatever. But, growing up, man, it was difficult. I mean, that's where I fit in with with Elsa, because what did she do?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, she did everything in her power to hide her own abilities, because of trauma. In my case, you know, I was bullied, so, and I was put into special ed. So I'm reminded every day in your childhood that there's something different. And therefore, I mean, in a way, you were treated second class. So, I mean, so from my life from that point on, I did everything I could to hide that I did have something different. And then, finding out I was autistic was like, oh my gosh. I mean, right down to when I went to BOCO, my voice teacher would try to beg me. It's like, look, you need to let people know about this, but I wouldn't forever. So honestly, this is surreal right now.
Yeah.
But
Well, I have to applaud you. I know that, it does feel like taking off your clothes by like being your total self and admitting to things that for a long time you kept really secret. But can I tell you, Katrina, you are such a lovely soul and you are clearly so talented. And
thank
when people get to hear you sing, it's just a gift. It's
thank
just a gift, and I'm so sorry that you went through what you went through when you were younger, but I hope that as time goes on that you see that sometimes when people bully, it's because they're intimidated. Because when you're that talented, people don't know when you're young, and if they aren't talented like you are, they felt less than you. And that's not good either. And they shouldn't be excused for bullying you, but you don't have to be anybody other than who you are. And we will love you. And we do love you because you're brilliant, and you are uniquely gifted as a singer. So I love, there are so many insights in this show, plus which is just beautiful music and beautiful entertainment. So what's the name of the show and how can people access it, Katrina?
The show is called Part of Your World because my main start was the thing that, opened up the floodgates was The Little Mermaid.
Mhm.
Because I mean that was what helped me they start talking at 5 years old. So that's why that one is that why it's called that. That's why it's extra important.
Look at that beautiful picture of you. So it's called Part of Your World, and we've got the clip there. And we're unfortunately, you guys, you're not going to get to hear Katrina sing because we don't have the rights on this show to show you the music. Because what kinds of music are you singing in this show, Katrina?
It's literally it is hence the name. It's literally all Disney. And okay, and you it's on YouTube. I have a channel called Katrina Aguilar Music where you can find it on. Um, and I'm on. I have a Facebook page with that same title,
Yes.
so that's where you can find it and watch it
Beautiful.
anytime if you like.
Look at how beautiful you look, and you can see it in your face. Your face is just glowing there. So you guys can go and watch it, but we do have to say that there was cost involved in all of this. And at the very beginning of the show, you'll see a lovely little message that says, they would love it if you would support Katrina in her journey. And if you love the music, you can make the suggested donation is $5 to her Patreon account, and which is a very small, it's going to cost you more to get a coffee, a small coffee at Starbucks. So please check it out. You can check it out on via her Facebook page or the YouTube page and watch. The show is exactly 60 minutes. You guys, sometimes if you can't do it for yourself, buy it for your kiddo, and plop them down in front of YouTube. And we should say, you can watch it for free, but please acknowledge the hard work that Katrina and others did, for her to be able. Where was this that you were performing, Katrina?
It was at, I think,
Was it the Catalina Jazz Club? Is that?
Catalina Jazz Club. Yeah.
It's beautiful. It's absolutely beautiful, and you look stunning.
Thank you.
And I know you sing beautifully. So absolutely incredible. One of the things that you say in the show, you identify yourself as being on the spectrum, but you know what else I really loved is that you um, say, I don't speak for everyone. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah.
I, I
Why
mean,
is that important to you, Katrina?
it's it's probably the most crucial. Hence, I put that at the very top of my show. I mean, while I go up there and I tell my story, you know, we all have different experiences. We're all. I mean, there's a reason it's called the spectrum.
Yeah.
We're all on different playing fields.
Yes.
So it's not. I just didn't think it was fair. It would never have been fair to me to say to be a spokesperson, a monolith, and that's what
Yeah.
I wanted to get across. I
It's
hope that my story can help someone on there that's having some of those same struggles. But I think that's the first. And at the end of the day, I'm just one person on the
yeah.
spectrum.
Yeah.
So that's why it was crucial for me to say that.
I appreciate that so much, Katrina, because I think it's one of the most misunderstood parts of the spectrum by both sides. I watch people who supposedly don't know anybody who's on the spectrum, and they're so rigid in their thinking. They meet one person on the spectrum, and then they think everybody is like that. The teacher who, one of her kids, she had a kiddo in her classroom who didn't like to be hugged, which happens, and that kiddo happened to be on the spectrum, and so she's in her mind she thought that all people on the autism spectrum don't like to be hugged. Well, so now the next kid comes in her classroom on the spectrum, and she hugs every other person in the classroom except him, and that little kiddo not only loved hugs but needed it for the sensory regulation, and she wasn't giving him a hug, and it took half a year for them to figure out that because she had this preconceived notion. I love what Dr. Shore says, Dr. Stephen Shore. He says, when you've met one person with autism, you've met one person with autism. I wish we could. I wish we could convince the public of that. So I appreciate you saying that. I also, because I think sometimes there are individuals on the spectrum who say, I need this, so I assume that everybody needs that. And that isn't always true either. So I appreciate you speaking for yourself. I do have to say that Clifford, I was saying, what is Clifford's nickname? Lawrence of Cabaret. I always get it wrong. Cabarabia. Lawrence of Cabarabia. That is hilarious, Clifford. So now you had first done a show with the Disney music, then you guys recorded it, and that's what's available on YouTube. But the show had evolved quite a bit from when you first did it to when you recorded it. Can you talk a little bit about what changed over time, Katrina?
Well, with the pandemic and with all that time we all spent by ourselves, I basically had nothing, well, besides work in my case. I had nothing but time to think. I had but time to mess around on YouTube and then wind up stumbling on a lot of that new stuff. So you know, hence, those two Frozen songs
Hmm.
that, and, and then I've also found that with my old show, there were things that no longer, that I felt with that no longer really served the purpose. And then there were ways I thought I could tell my story even more. I could be more direct
Yeah.
with what I'm saying. I could in my so and then there was something else. It also tied up to something else that I found that I really wanted to do. I mean, I wanted to create a villains medley. There were so many amazing villain songs out there, but they don't, sometimes you can only use parts because they don't all work. But
Yeah.
I kind of wanted to incorporate my story with like with like the villains, so that was something else that I wanted to do, that Richard and I really worked, my accompanist and I
Uh-huh.
really worked hard to do. But I mean, it was like incorporating better ways to tell my story, more stuff that I really wanted to do,
Yeah.
and then like and then it it just evolved into something else. And then I tell other parts of my story too that I didn't even mention
Yeah.
during the first run of my show too.
Interesting. Well,
So
you've grown. Excuse me. You've grown as an artist. You've grown as a young woman. So I got to ask you. This is, and you don't have to answer, but who's your favorite villainess?
villain, oh man, that's, I would have to say it's kind of a tie between Ursula and Maleficent.
Ah, okay.
Unfortunately,
I agree.
the latter doesn't have a song, but you
Well, there
know,
you go. There you go. Well, that's interesting, and we'll all find out why later on this week. Grandma D wants to know. First of all, Grandma D, you did miss the segment on desensitization. It was at the very top of the show, so you'll have to go back and watch the recording. We covered it. I talked about it longer than I should have. But Grandma D wants to know if you ever experienced apraxia of speech as a child or as a teen.
no, all I know is that, I mean, I from 0 to 5, I was nonverbal altogether. And then even as I started talking, the only thing I talked about was I was on a complete mental playing field. Mom would ask me what I wanted for lunch, and I talk about the Little Mermaid.
Right.
But
Right.
beyond that, as far as speech goes, you know, I, I'm an apraxia never, and that never came up in my, so.
And for those of you who don't know, apraxia, we have individuals who are on the spectrum that have a communication disorder. We have individuals who aren't don't yet have vocal speech, but then there is something called apraxia. Apraxia is when the words are in your head, but the muscles aren't working to get it out. And it's those individuals. It's a tougher nut to crack, I gotta say. But we've done a lot of shows about apraxia, so that wasn't your particular thing. But Katrina, when were you diagnosed? How old were you?
I would, I would venture to, I was 4.
4. Okay,
Yeah.
but is that because your parents? Because you don't remember when you were 4, right?
Mm-mm.
How old were you when those words were first said to you and you understood that they applied to you?
Oddly enough, I, I, I was later, like when I was around 17, I was diagnosed with Asperger's.
Got it.
Autism, the word autism was not brought up around me. There were other things going on,
Yeah.
academically, but, autism as of itself was not brought up until I was later diagnosed with Asperger's
Got it.
in my late teens. And then it was like, okay, that's also common. You're, which also means you were probably diagnosed as with autism at an earlier age. But now that the word Asperger's has become outdated, but
Yeah.
that's kind of where that stands.
Yeah, and it's so funny because words matter so much, and they're how we identify ourselves and stuff. And so I hope that soon they're gonna sort it out because I know for many people they're like, wait a second, how can I have Asperger's and then you decide that doesn't exist anymore, and you've folded it into something else, and I'm supposed to re-identify myself. It's a crazy time we live in. But you're you, and you are uniquely you, Katrina, and you're fabulous. Everything about you is fabulous. And I just want you to hear that from all of us. And you're so talented. So people can be watching part of your world. And you can go catch Katrina on her YouTube page or on her Facebook page to do that. Please donate to her. Suggested donation is $5. I guarantee you, like, Katrina can make more things happen with that $5 than you can today. So give that $5 to Katrina. And then Katrina, we only have a couple of minutes left here. What are you working on now?
Right now, we're I have some right now we're trying we're getting this show on we're trying to get this show further down the road. We want to perform this more times, hopefully be able to travel with it, hopefully. But one thing, as for, nothing's set in stone, mind you, but what I'm sort of writing in my mind is a Halloween show.
Oh, well, that'll be fun. And I can't wait to hear what you think, because you're getting to go see this wonderful, exciting performance of Nightmare Before Christmas. Rare opportunity. Billie Eilish and Danny Elfman. Good
And
heaven.
Weird Al Yankovic and Ken Page.
Wow, that's incredible. Is that at the Hollywood Bowl? Where is that being done?
It's not the Hollywood Bowl, but I'd have to look up the tickets.
Well, I'm excited that you're going to that. That's like primo. I don't think anybody can get tickets to that anymore. So we'll wait to hear how much you love that. I'm old enough that I can remember listening to Danny Elfman when he was part of, I believe it was Oingo Boingo.
Boingo Boingo.
So when I was young, we were listening to Danny Elfman, but it was an entirely different thing. Yeah, Oingo Boingo. In any case, loved him then, love him still now. Katrina, love you. You're amazing, and your show is amazing. Can we put up the part of your world thing again, Traven? So what you want to do is, what is your YouTube page? Is it just Katrina Aguilar? What's the name of your
Katrina
YouTube?
Aguilar
Music. Okay. And wonderful. And so you go Katrina Aguilar Music, then you will find it. And there are other videos there that you can watch Katrina sing as well. I'm disheartened that we couldn't have her sing on the show, but
ladies and gentlemen,
Disney is very funny about allowing their songs to play on our show. So love this picture. There's the show, you guys. So make sure that you tune into it. And I encourage you to have your kiddos watch it. Here's the thing. Katrina tells her story throughout the show. I promise you'll hear some good music done beautifully by this amazing young woman, but you'll hear a story that's filled with inspiration and insight. It's really a lovely, it's an hour. And you're always looking for role models for your kiddos. There is Katrina, and she's a lovely role model of someone who is following her passion, making it work, using her talents. Katrina, thank you so much for being with us today. All right, we'll talk to you soon. It's straight up 11 o'clock, you guys, so I got to sign off. But tomorrow, if you found anything helpful in this video, please give us a like. In fact, make sure that you smash that subscribe button on YouTube and give us a like on Facebook. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Instagram for important updates. And please download our free podcast wherever you get your podcasts. Thank you so much. See you next time.